CNBC TV 18, celebrating 16 years of business leadership.
Do diesel cars emit oxygen? Harsh words from the Supreme Court as it upholds the ban on large diesel cars in the National Capital Region. Says anyone buying diesel cars should know that they're buying a polluting device.
Markets in Shanghai and across Asia stabilise after yesterday's sharp sell-off. Sensex and Nifty end with marginal losses. Midcaps outperform.
Shares on Wall Street open in the red as investors keep a close watch on China. European markets have also given up their gains.
Tensions rise in the Middle East as Kuwait follows Saudi, Bahrain and UAE to recall its ambassador from Iran. This, coupled with China's troubles, see crude prices in the red.
I was defamed and my family was targeted, says Finance Minister Arun Jaitley as he records his statement against Arvind Kejriwal in the defamation case. Also asserts he did not take money from anyone when he was president of the Delhi Cricket Association.
All 6 terrorists killed at the Pathankot air base, confirms Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar. Also admits there were gaps in the operation. An FIR by the Punjab police blames Jaish-e-Mohammed for the attack. Nawaz Sharif tiles Narendra Modi and promises prompt action.
The whole Simla-Farge deal is close to getting the final approval, says CCI Chairman Ashok Chawla. Also promises faster clearances of M&A deals and a sneak peek into the new merger control regulations. That's a CNBC TV 18 exclusive.
Income Tax Department searched properties of Apollo hospitals across India, but the stock of the country's largest hospital chain recovers to end with healthy gains.
Uber's Travis Kalanick and SoftBank's Masayoshi Son will soon join 40 Silicon Valley CEOs on the 16th of January for the gala launch of Startup India. The government promises to make life easy for budding entrepreneurs.
Expect every state to join the Uday plan to revive power distribution companies, says the Power Minister Piyush Goyal. Says the centre is working on the peculiar situation in Tamil Nadu where the DISCOM is not a separate entity.
Also on the show, the man who delivered the Vodafone verdict and many other landmark judgments, former Chief Justice of India S.H. Kapadia is no more. We take a look back at his legacy.
ऐसा कुछ मैं सोच के नहीं आया था कि मैं इतना बड़ा स्कोर करूँगा।
हमने कभी सोचा भी नहीं था कि ये इतना आगे जाएगा करके, लेकिन बहुत बड़ी खुशी की बात है हमारे लिए आज की। आज हम दोनों उसके नाम से जाने जा रहे हैं कि ये प्रणव के मम्मी पापा है करके।
जो स्पार्क आज प्रणव ने दिखाया है, महाराष्ट्र सरकार के स्पोर्ट्स डिपार्टमेंट की ओर से हम ये ध्यान देंगे कि वो सही दिशा में शेप होकर एक अच्छा क्रिकेटर आने वाले दिनों में हम हिंदुस्तान की ओर से दुनिया को दे सकते हैं।
Well, a century is good, a double century great, a triple century stupendous, but what about 1,000 runs? That's right, 15-year-old Pranav Dhanwade, the son of an auto rickshaw driver, has smashed the records by scoring 1,000 runs in an intraday tournament in Mumbai, and that's a school tournament for you. Here's hoping he breaks into the Indian team and shatters more records. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. 1,000 runs, Nantara.
Well, maybe he'll be the new master blaster. He could be the new great wall of India. But Shireen, this is why we don't have any bowlers. We don't have any bowlers clearly in schools as well.
Well, spare a thought for those hapless bowlers. There's a reason why no kid in India wants to become a bowler. Enough of the cricket for just a bit. But let's get down to the market action now. After a tumultuous start to the week, the Lal Street was relatively calmer today. So the Sensex lost about 40 points in what was a choppy session. The Nifty also ending marginally in the red as it remains below the 7,800 mark. Midcaps, though, rallied in trade, ending with gains of nearly 1%. So that was the story as far as our market was concerned. From the Lal Street now to Mint Street, the Indian currency has managed to end more or less flat after the rupee gave up the intraday gains that it posted earlier in the day. New dollar demand from importers took the rupee back to about the 66.60 to the dollar mark by the close of today's trade. Now, stocks in China also pairing most of their losses in a volatile session. China's central bank conducted the biggest reverse repurchase operation since September, adding $20 billion to the financial system. Other Asian markets also saw a mixed closing after stocks in Shanghai recovered in late trade. Eunice Yoon joins us from our studios in Hong Kong. Eunice, what's the mood in China? We've seen the PBOC act today, but how is the government likely to move given the kind of volatility that we are seeing in the Chinese markets?
Chinese authorities are really doing their best to try to stabilize the stock markets. We had the PBOC, or the Chinese Central Bank, step in, injecting $20 billion into the banking system. And also the Chinese media has been on overdrive with major headlines like, "Don't overreact, this is normal," and the national team, meaning the government, is on the move again. There was also some suspected buying of stocks by state-backed firms. Now, the problem is that this isn't really having much of an effect to boost the confidence among small-time investors who largely drive the stock markets. We spoke to many of them over the past couple of days, and most of them are saying that they're really concerned about the state of the economy. There was one investor who said to me that all the news is bad and that it's just too much to bear, that the data was bad and especially the weak currency. In fact, people have been pointing to the currency and saying, look how bad the economy is, just take a look at the currency. Now, all of this is really scaring people, and what we're hearing also is that not only are small-time investors, but some of the local professionals are starting to worry about a second stock market crisis looming, and they're looking at one of the major events that they're looking at is the expiration of some government controls later this week. On January 8th, the government is going to lift a ban that was put in place over the summer to try to ease some of the selling. And so we've already heard from the state regulator that they're going to potentially extend that ban, but it's still not having a lot of effect on trying to keep up investor spirits here.
So no panic selling this Tuesday, but definitely a volatile session of trade. Thanks, Eunice, for putting all of that in perspective for us. Now let's talk about Wall Street and tell you how the indices over there are trading. We did try to see the frontline indices on Wall Street try to make a gradual recovery, but since then they have slipped into the red. So you have the Dow down by about 61 points. The Nasdaq's got a red tick against it. The S&P 500 also down by just 4 points, but it is down 0.2%. European markets, they're faring relatively better than their counterparts in the US, but the major indices which were in the green. You've seen the German DAX now go back into the red, but the British FTSE still up by about 0.5%. The French CAC just about barely holding onto the green. And Shireen, perhaps a big reason for that is because of what we are seeing in the crude markets. Crude prices once again heading down. Absolutely, Nandara. Crude prices relatively unmoved even as tensions escalate in the Middle East. Kuwait today became the 5th country to downgrade its diplomatic relationship with Iran. Now, Kuwait has also recalled its ambassador to Iran after Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain and Sudan have taken similar action. The crisis started when Saudi Arabia executed prominent Shia cleric, and protesters in Tehran stormed the Saudi embassy. Hadley Gamble reports on the escalating tensions in the Middle East. That's oil for you. Now, Brent lower by about 2%, and the NYMEX has lost about 1.5%. Hadley.
Wilfred, what we've seen over the last 48 hours is, in fact, the kingdom striking back yet again. Yesterday, we saw them cutting diplomatic relations with Iran. Now they say they're going to halt trade. They're also going to halt commercial flights to the country. And we also see them now taking their fight to the United Nations. Take a listen to what the UN ambassador had to say.
Those attacks were unprovoked. They constituted very serious violations of international norms and laws and regulations, and of course a serious violation of the Vienna Convention on the protection of diplomatic and consular offices.
Now, of course, Saudi Arabia's foreign minister as well saying over the last 48 hours that this is not only just a serious violation of international law, but also that this is part of a wider series of violations on the part of Tehran over the last several years, including what's happening, of course, in Lebanon with Hezbollah, and of course what's happening in Syria as well, and of course what's happening in Saudi Arabia's own backyard in Yemen. You have to remember, of course, that Saudi Arabia is fighting an ongoing war there against Houthi rebels that are backed ostensibly by Tehran. They say that Iran is making trouble in their backyard. And of course, the bigger question going forward is, amidst all of this geopolitical tension, does anyone stand to benefit? And of course, the answer to that is a bit complicated. Saudi Arabia may get a little bit of a boost off the back of this news. You know, it does take several things off the headlines, off the front page for them. And one of the things it takes off the front page is, of course, the fact that there hasn't been much progress in their ongoing war in Yemen. And of course, also what we've heard over the last couple of weeks, this is a kingdom that for the first time in its history is looking to cut back. We, of course, know that this is a country that their entire budget and economy is based off the back of oil prices. And with oil prices being what they are, they've had to introduce subsidies for the very first time. And that could be a problem for them, at least domestically, going forward, guys.
And we appreciate you joining us there from Saudi Arabia and giving us the latest escalating tensions in the Middle East, but not impacting oil prices. In fact, oil trading lower today. Now, the big story back home, the Supreme Court has refused to relax the ban imposed on big diesel cars in the National Capital Region. The court, in fact, had some harsh words for automakers. Ashmit joins us now with the arguments that were made in court today. Ashmit, the automakers, the diesel car manufacturers were hoping to get the Supreme Court to relax the order banning diesel vehicles over 2,000 cc from plying in the National Capital Region, from being sold in the National Capital Region, but the court would have none of it.
Indeed, those arguments not managing to cut any ice. The three automakers that were present in court today include the likes of Toyota, M&M, Mercedes, as well as the industry body SIAM. Now, all of them made the arguments, all of them agreed that in fact diesel is the norm that is being followed globally, that it is the lesser of the two evils when compared to petrol, that it is indeed less polluting, that petrol does emit substances such as carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, which are equally harmful. They also went on to argue that a large chunk of this 2000 plus cc market is the rural market, and they do not constitute luxury products. In fact, Mercedes also reasoned before the Apex Court that in fact 2000cc cars, the sub 2000cc cars account for a majority of the chunk of diesel vehicle pollution. The Supreme Court clearly not having any of it, insisting that it will stick to its earlier position of the diesel ban. In fact, it jokingly also remarked to whether these cars, diesel cars, emit oxygen. So clearly indicating the position that it is sticking to, and with that note, putting the onus of proving the efficacy of diesel as a fuel squarely on the shoulders of the car makers. They will come back on Jan 20th, we understand, to clarify their position with respect to diesel cars. But clearly, as of now, the Supreme Court appears to have its mind made. It, in fact, also remarked with a warning, in fact, to the car makers that if indeed diesel is found to be more polluting, it will lead to more consequences as far as diesel car makers are concerned. So clearly, the Supreme Court setting the tone and sticking to its guns as far as the diesel vehicle ban is concerned.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us with that, but we'll come back to you, so hang in there. The Supreme Court has also ordered the centre to ensure 104 CNG petrol pumps are open by the 31st of March across the 10 districts of the Delhi National Capital Region. Now, this has been done to promote the greener fuel and ensure less inconvenience to the public. The stock of IGL surging on the back of that news. In fact, at one point of the day, the stock was higher by about 10% and finally gave up some of those gains, closing about 7% in the green. Now, 2016 will mark the start of a decisive shift in M&M's decade-old SUV strategy. The diesel-only car maker will launch its first petrol SUV next week and is working to fast-track the petrol variants of its flagship products like the Scorpio. M&M's Pathankot spoke exclusively to CNBC TV 18's Ronojoy Banerjee to explain how the company intends de-risking itself from the diesel debacle.
It has been a litigious start to the new year for the auto industry. On the first Monday of 2016, M&M along with Tata Motors, Toyota and Mercedes-Benz moved to plea in the Supreme Court against the Apex Court ban. The worst hit among the OEMs is M&M, with a portfolio overwhelmingly diesel-driven. The top management of the company, led by Pathankot, is now ready with a strategy to counter the ban, marking a shift in the company's decade-old strategy.
Will there be a shift? Yes, there will be. In the sense that we clearly want to make sure that our portfolio that we offer of products is not lacking in terms of availability of gasoline engines.
Right.
Okay. As I said, that probably in about 2 years' time, it will be a non-issue for us. You want a petrol, you get a petrol. You want a diesel, you get a diesel. Okay.
All new models and existing models?
I would say all volume models.
Goenka also confirmed a CNBC TV 18 report last month on how the ban had forced the auto major to fast-track the launch of petrol SUVs of its best-selling models like Scorpio XUV 500. For the time being though, M&M is banking on the KUV 100, its first ever petrol SUV, to be launched next week.
We already are working even before any of this happened. We are working on a Scorpio gasoline, we are working on XUV gasoline, and I don't want to give a timeline right now, but that work.
But you would want to fast track those products?
We want to fast track those products with KUV 100 that we have announced already. We'll be launching it next week. We have a gasoline and a diesel running parallelly.
Analysts say that the shift to petrol will not be easy for M&M, as it will now face competition from the Marutis and the Hyundais of the world. Goenka says that he's ready for that challenge.
This is the first time we are entering into what is the mass segment.
Oh, yes.
The mass segment, right? And we have a very differentiated offering compared to the whole crowd that you see in that segment. We have a very differentiated offering, and therefore it's a very important product for us. And first time we are launching a gasoline.
Yes, exactly.
Engine. So that also makes it very significant. It just timing happens to be right, that it's coming just at the time when we are in this whole controversy that's going on.
Goenka cautions though that just like a bottle of wine cannot age before its time, similarly the shift in M&M strategy cannot happen overnight. In New Delhi, Ranajai Banerjee.
So that's M&M's strategy to try and de-risk itself, the first petrol launch next week. The big political story, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley today recorded his statement in court on the 10 crore rupee defamation case he has slapped on Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal and 5 others. There was chaos, expectedly, outside the Patiala High House Court, where Jaitley appeared and the judge refused to allow the media inside the courtroom. In his statement, the Finance Minister has accused Kejriwal of false statements on social media, also asserted that he did not receive money from anybody when he was president of the Delhi Cricket Association, and refuted charges of money being siphoned off. Let's go back across to Ashmit. Ashmit, take us through the statement made by the Finance Minister in court, the media not being allowed inside.
Indeed, the doors of the court were shut as far as the media is concerned. Only Arun Jaitley as well as the other witnesses being allowed inside. This, of course, was a matter of procedure. The witnesses will be recording their statement. And this being given that this is a one-of-its-kind battle between the Union Finance Minister on one hand and a State Chief Minister on the other, Delhi Chief Minister to be specific on the other. Clearly, Arun Jaitley not mincing his words, coming out and seeking the full force of the law for prosecuting and punishing Kejriwal as well as the other 5 accused. He went on to, in fact, argue that, in fact, there was a closely coordinated strategy between all the accused, and there was a common intent of maligning him. He went on to also reason before the special court that, in fact, all the parties concerned are, in fact, educated and aware that the statements being made are false. He also hit out at the use of social media for propagating what he called propagation of these misleading statements. He also reasoned before the court that there appears to be a political strategy behind it, given that the parties concerned are, in fact, political rivals to the person concerned. And finally also concluding his arguments by saying that throughout his tenure as the DDCA president, not a single rupee had been siphoned off or diverted to any of his accounts. Now this again, mind you, is a matter of procedure. What we now understand is that on the next date of hearing, which is February 3rd, the remaining witnesses, which are about 6 in number, will be putting forth their accounts, and only then will the special courts take a call on whether or not to summon Kejriwal and company.
Alright, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us with those details. Now, it's been more than 3 days since terrorists attacked the Air Force Base in Pathankot. Combing operations are still underway in the area. The Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar, who was in Pathankot today, has confirmed that 6 terrorists have been killed so far. He expects the entire combing operations to end by tomorrow. He has accepted the fact that there were gaps in the system which have enabled the terrorists to enter the Pathankot Air Base. Arunodaya Mukherjee, who is in Pathankot, joins us from just outside the Air Force Base. Arunodaya, take us through what is the latest there.
You a brief scene of what's happening. My video journalist Guneet is going to just show you, this is the entry point of the road leading up to the airbase. This had been cordoned off till a short while back. It continues to be cordoned off, but it's been open to traffic, and right now you can see scooters and people moving in greater numbers. This kind of movement was not being witnessed for a while. In fact, a lot of people together can now walk inside, at least, even though they are being checked for their identification. So this road, because it branches off to the airbase, but if you don't branch off, you can go straight and join the main road. So it seems, there you go, that's another vehicle that's going in. This is something that we hadn't seen earlier in the day. So this is just to give you a sense, and all of you who are tuning in, to a sign and a sense of normalcy that seems to be returning to the area around the airbase. So that's one point that again is an indicator of things now slowly having come to an end.
अभी combing operation जारी है. ये केवल कोम्बिंग फॉर सेफ्टी पर्पज है. मुझे थोड़े गैप्स दिखते हैं, वो इन्वेस्टिगेशन करने के बाद समझ जाएंगे. लेकिन आई डोंट थिंक हम लोगों ने सिक्योरिटी पे कुछ कॉम्प्रोमाइज किया है.
Meanwhile, the FIR filed by the Punjab police has blamed terror outfit Jaish-e-Mohammed for the attack at Pathankot. Pakistan's Prime Minister also, who's on a visit to Sri Lanka, dialed Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Sharif promised prompt and decisive action against the terrorists behind the attack. Sharif also reportedly told Modi that terrorists always try to derail the peace process and promised Pakistan would fully cooperate and investigate the leads that would be provided by India.
And it's the final salute to Lieutenant Colonel Niranjan Kumar, the NSG commander who died while leading his team in the anti-terror operation at the Pathankot Air Base. NSG Commando Niranjan Kumar's last rites were held in his hometown of Palakkad in Kerala.
Right, let's head back to corporate news now. Taxing times for the country's largest healthcare chain, Apollo Hospitals. The stock fell intraday trade today. That's before recovering higher after the Income Tax Department conducted searches at a number of the hospital's properties across the country. Jude Sanith, who's standing outside Apollo's main hospital in Chennai, joining us with the details. Jude, do we know how many places were searched by the IT department and why did they do so?
Released by Apollo Hospitals a little earlier in the evening did confirm that searches conducted by the IT department did in fact take place at several properties owned by the company in several cities. Now, sources from within this hospital tell us that IT searches were conducted in cities like Chennai, Bengaluru, Hyderabad and even New Delhi. Now, the statement says that Apollo is committed to continuing the honest business practices and diligence that it has upheld for so many years in the pursuit of maintaining good relationships with not just its patients but also its shareholders. Apollo has also confirmed to us that no incriminating evidence was found against the company in terms of tax evasion. So as far as they are concerned, they are very much in the clear. And we can also confirm to you, based on this information, that nothing has exactly been seized from the hospital in terms of these searches conducted by the IT department. But in a very interesting phase of trading that happened a little earlier in the day, Apollo's shares fell by close to 1.22% after an initial gain of 3.28% in the opening session of trading. But that quickly recovered to end up on a high. Apollo, in fact, ended the day at 1.3% higher in terms of when compared to its opening share price. So Apollo doing pretty well in the share market, although it came under the IT scanner for just a bit.
Thanks, Jude, for joining us with that. Apollo Hospital stock meanwhile closing up by over 1% in trade. Come 16th of January, the who's who of Silicon Valley are going to descend in New Delhi for the gala launch of Startup India. 40 top CEOs are going to be in attendance, and that includes Uber's Travis Kalanick, SoftBank's Masha Yossi Son, and Adam Newman of WeWork. Rituparna Bhuyan caught up with the DIPP Secretary Amitabh Kant to find out what we can expect on the 16th of January.
So there are challenges. The challenges in terms of entry, the challenges in terms of exit, failure. Not merely entry, failure is a big issue. Startups fail. 90% of the startups fail. They need to exit very smoothly. I think there's a lot of work in progress. You need to wait for the action plan to be unveiled by the Prime Minister.
My quick last question, sir. I know you can't give us specific details, but do we expect fiscal incentives and an environment where they do not have to comply to these numerous old laws, including labor laws? Do we have such an environment? Will we have such an environment in place? And will startups get the fiscal incentives also?
No, patience is a virtue. You should wait. I think we'll talk about this after the workshop is over, after the Prime Minister is unveiled. Our attempt is to create the best possible ecosystem so that startups remain, prosper and enable India to progress as well.
So watch out for the Startup India policy on the 16th of January. It's going to be another mega event. But let's bring you another CNBC TV 18 exclusive tonight. Ashok Chawla, the outgoing chairman of the CCI, has good news for India Inc. and the ease of doing business. In an interview with CNBC TV 18's Menika Doshi, Chawla has promised faster clearances for M&A deals and also offered a glimpse into the pending revisions in merger control regulations. He's also indicated that the wholesome Lafarge deal is close to getting final approval from the CCI. Menika joins us now with more. Menika,
Well, let's start with the good news on the Holcim Lafarge front, guys. You may remember that the global merger of Holcim Lafarge had run into a CCI hurdle here in India. The Indian competition regulator cleared the India leg of the merger on the condition that Lafarge divest assets in eastern India, specifically the Sonadik cement plant and the Jojobera grinding station, both totaling approximately 5 million tons of cement capacity. Lafarge Holcim had in fact struck a deal with Birla Corp to sell those two plants for about $760 million. Lafarge had struck that deal, but the deal hasn't gone through because government policy does not allow the transfer of a mining lease that was allocated and not won in auction. That's as per the amended Mining Act. So I asked the CCI chairman Ashok Chawla, what happens if government policy prohibits parties from fulfilling an asset sale that was ordered by the CCI? Well, he told me that Lafarge has come back with a revised proposal that will most likely get CCI's approval. Listen in.
Now, this is something which is more like a black swan event. It's not going to happen every day. It happens very rarely. It happened in this particular case that you are referring to because at one point in time, we gave out the order on structural remedy, and around the same point in time, maybe slightly later or so, the Mining Act was amended. So these kind of situations don't arise in normal cases. They have arisen in this case. And I think the process on the part of the company to come back with an alternative proposal is already on the table. The earlier proposal was to sell two assets. Then the company has withdrawn that and put a proposal which is more comprehensive, which covers this particular area where we had issues from the competition point of view. So we are examining that. I presume we will have no objections as long as this part is taken care of and it becomes a wider proposal. Well, if they sell, if they go beyond that and sell assets more than X and Y, I presume we can have no objection as long as X and Y go out of their management and control and go to somebody who is not otherwise dominant in that region. So our concern was only that.
All right, so there you have it, the CCI chairman indicating that Lafarge has put in a revised proposal and that Lafarge could very well be selling more Indian assets than earlier anticipated. In fact, that has been the buzz for the last few weeks, that the entire Lafarge India business may get sold. I wasn't able to confirm that. That's only a rumor, but you do have some indication now from the CCI chairman. The outgoing chairman also told me that CCI was working to reduce the time taken to clear merger filings. Now, when merger control regulations were first applied, a merger filing took about an average of 29 days to clear. That has now gone up to 55 days. And given the recent surge in deal activity, the delays were indicative of a pile-up. Mr. Chawla says the approval time will soon come down to about 35 days.
We are now in the process of changing our operating procedure at the level of the officers who examine this to be able to bring down in the vast majority of cases, which may really have no major competition concerns, back to the 30-35 days or so that we used to take earlier. And it's only in the maybe 10% cases which require detailed attention that we will need to take more time. So you should watch this space, and I think in the next 3 to 6 months you will see a clear change from what has happened. And why it has happened is that there were many more filings which were taking place. Our people were trying to go into details in respect of even cases where perhaps there was no great need for intensive study. So we've brought in a number of changes. We brought in engagement with the parties at the level of a group of members, etc., which should be which would enable that the larger perspective is seen before the matter comes to the full commission for a decision.
Well, that will be music to the ears of India Inc. CCI is also revising for the 5th time in 5 years its merger control regulations. Chairman Ashok Chawla hints at the impending changes in his responses to my questions.
There are issues which have come up in terms of who should be filing who is authorized to file a merger notification, particularly in relation to multinational companies. When should a notice be invalidated? Should parties be heard before invalidating or not? So these are questions which have bothered the companies which file and their intermediaries, and we hope to resolve many of these issues in this round of change of regulations, which is, I think, ready and is just going to be notified in the next few days. But surely that if filing is absolutely sort of way off track and doesn't really deserve to be filed, I mean, it's just a sheet of paper which doesn't contain anything, let's say, you don't want us to say that, no, we will not even invalidate that. So that provision or that option should remain with the regulator. What we are trying to ensure, so that there is no undue hardship, what we are trying to ensure is that it is not used casually, that it is not used without giving an adequate opportunity to the parties that file, and that we believe is a reasonable and fair middle ground. We have a provision which says that if they have notified to any of the other regulators, etc., then that serves as a trigger. I think there is a proposal to amend that and reduce it to only one of the triggers relating to the transaction in relation to the market interests where the minority investors are concerned. So probably we'll stick to that.
So there you have it, the outgoing chairman of CCI saying that possibly CCI may afford parties a hearing before filings are invalidated, and there will be more clarity on filing triggers. These revisions are expected in the next 48 hours. That's before Mr. Chawla leaves office. So the big story he's left us to chase this evening is what happens now to Lafarge's India assets. What part or portion of them is on the block now? Of course, more than 2 plants, and really who will be the buyer? So that'll be the big cement story to chase in the days to come. With that, it's back to you guys.
All right, Minka, thanks very much. That was the big CNBC TV 18 exclusive this evening.
CNBC TV 18, celebrating 16 years of business leadership.